What is percent CV and how do I use it to interpret my continuous glucose monitor data? My name is Karen Kennedy, and I'm a functional nutritionist, and I specialize in helping people use continuous glucose monitors to hack their blood sugar. So, there are a number of metrics on your continuous glucose monitor or CGM app on your phone. And the CV, percent CV, is one I like to use with my patients. And I'm going to show you how it works because I got a bunch of questions about it just this week. Percent CV stands for coefficient of variation. And mathematically, that shows you the ratio of the standard deviation to the mean, the average. What it does is it gives you an idea of how widely dispersed the data points are. So on a continuous glucose monitor graph, you could have an average of, say, 100 and tight control, which would give you a very low coefficient of variation. Or you can have an average of 100 and have wide swings or like a lot of spikes, and that would give you a high coefficient of variation. So I like to use this. One reason is because sometimes our continuous glucose monitors are running maybe 10 or 15% low, 10 or 15% high. So comparing the data from one sensor to the next one is sometimes a little like apples to oranges. But this one tends to be a little more reliable when I'm comparing a sensor, the data from a sensor somebody used, say, back in December to one they used in February. And speaking of that, I want to show you exactly what that looks like. So this here is the data from one of my patients who has type 2 diabetes. He's on a few medications. And this was back in December. And you can see wide swings, a lot of time out of range. And down here, you can see this data showing that the average glucose was 135, the GMI, which is like an A1C-ish number, 6.5, and the coefficient of variation is 30.5. All right. So compare that to data from just this last month, a couple months later, after they've been using a CGM. We've been working together for a few months. And you can see here, down here, that the average glucose is 130. It's a little lower, not a lot lower, but the glucose variability is, the CV is 19.8. So again, compare that 30.5 to 19.8. That's a 30% drop. That is big. And this is important because I didn't see a huge drop in the average glucose. And when you've been using a continuous glucose monitor and trying to improve your blood sugar, you kind of want to see some metrics move. And this is what moved. And why this is important for someone with type 2 diabetes is often they already have such significant insulin resistance that I don't see their fasting blood sugar dropping very quickly. Sometimes it does, but often it stays elevated for a while. But what we have to do, the main thing we have to do is we need to minimize those glucose excursions. Some people call them spikes, but we need to find a way to eat and have some lifestyle habits like exercise that mean that our glucose does not go up as high after meals. And practicing that on rinse and repeat week after week for a few months is going to start improving that insulin resistance and making more insulin sensitive. So what this tells me is now we're at the place where these are the meals that are going to work for this person. And if they just put them on rinse and repeat for a couple of months, now we're going to see some big shifts in their insulin resistance, and we can start dropping some diabetes medications, which is, of course, the main goal. So like I said, the percent CV is really handy. I know there's a lot of metrics that we can look at, but in this case and many cases, I try to use the percent CV. And my target for this, like what should your percent CV be? It's going to depend a little bit on your metabolism. For my patients, if I'm trying to improve insulin sensitivity, I shoot for trying to get it below 15, closer to 12. And we can get it down there, we can really improve insulin sensitivity. Similarly, if I get somebody who has really sensitive blood sugar, like really feels it when they get those swings, like someone with dysautonomia or POTS, I want to get that CV down to around 12. But for patients who, especially on the other end of the spectrum, high performance athletes who are training at a very high level, very intensely, and using a lot of carbohydrates to fuel, they're going to have wider glucose swings, but their body's going to tolerate it better. So for those people, I wouldn't be so bloody minded about maintaining such tight control. I would allow for more variability because their body can handle it. So again, it depends. It's really person to person. So I hope you appreciated this. And if you have any questions about how you use, or I'd love to hear how you use these metrics like percent CV, put it down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you like this content, please remember to hit subscribe.